Arizona, homeowner's best friend.
All right, talking about the history and development of the Phoenix area, we've got the inaugural Phoenix historian, Steve Schumacher, joined with historical architect Don Ryden in studio. And Rosie wants to jump into, Jack Swilling coming down from Wickenburg to start the irrigation. But let me just ask real quick, any reason or documentation or evidence of why the area was abandoned to begin with?
Well,
it's a lot of people to leave the area.
200,000.
It's a lot
Where
of
do you
people.
go?
it wasn't overnight. It was longer out.
Yeah.
I mean, the archaeologists are still arm wrestling with one another over what the causes are. It's never really been truly determined, but consensus is mainly that they went through a drought and heat up of the environment, and even the rivers were drying up. And with 1,000 years of recurring irrigation, what would happen is that the salts beneath the soil would rise up and burn out and kill the roots of their crops. And so it was kind of a double whammy
Drought
from
and
above.
famine.
Yeah, from above and below. And who knows, maybe beside, there may have been other tribes that were covetous of their success.
And what era of time is this that it kind of, when Jack comes and gets all these irrigation ditches going again, how many years had it been abandoned?
Well, let's see. They turned out the last campfire in about 1450, and so it wasn't until the 1860s then when the Anglos came to settle in the valley.
And Arizona's growing at the time. I mean, mining is driving a lot of the Arizona growth at the time, so there isn't a lot of mining on the desert floor. So you've got the Bradshaws are being mined pretty heavy. Prescott's growing pretty heavy. You've still got the Wild West presence. You've got a cavalry installation up at Fort McDowell. So how does Swilling, being the opportunist and visionary that he is, he's the Elon Musk of the era.
Wow. That's a pretty good comparison. Well, he was, he took on a lot of different roles in the beginnings of Arizona and Phoenix. He was with the Confederate Army, kind of left them behind, hooked up with the Union Army. Unfortunately, most people, when they describe Swilling, the first thing they say, Confederate deserter, and addicted to morphine, which, may or may not be true in total. But the guy started where we live. Phoenix may have begun later on, but it certainly began because of him.
And so he's traveling the area with a couple of compadres, and they discover these canal systems, take a look at it, and have the insight to realize, hey, at one time we had a growing community here, and we've got a fort. I don't know what, 18 miles, 20 miles to the northeast, and they've got livestock, and let's grow some hay.
Right. Yeah. Again, he was very much a futurist. Maybe Elon Musk is a good example, but yeah, he saw what it could become again because the Hohokam had prospered and thrived. And so he saw that, went to Wickenburg, gathered anywhere between 15, 20 people. Somebody had $10,000. They brought it back, bought the equipment.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. And their first attempt actually was right across the river from what's now Tempe. So I like to tell people, had Swilling and his crew been successful with their first attempt, the center of Phoenix would have been on the north end of the Mill Avenue Bridge.
He was probably chiming for the view lot on Tempe Butte, probably.
Absolutely.
right, Don?
Yeah, well, now that was Charles Trumbull Hayden who got that.
He got
site.
that one.
Yeah.
He did. So where does Swilling put down the foundation to his home?
If people that are listening know where the old Greyhound Park is. I think it's like 36th Street, 32nd Street, somewhere in Washington. His 160-acre property was just a little bit west of there. There's a Honeywell plant there now. It's just on the north side of Sky Harbor Airport, just on the north side of the railroad tracks. And he actually, the very first Catholic Mass, he married a Hispanic lady who was Catholic, and the very first Catholic Mass in the valley was held at his house in that location.
And we don't have that preserved.
No. Unfortunately, the ruins of his 96,000 adobe brick home.
What do you mean 96,000?
96.
It took 96,000 adobe blocks.
Okay. Yeah, blocks.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Not square feet.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It was huge square footage as well.
96,000 adobe block will get you a pretty good sized building.
Right. Yeah, he was a visionary. He saw that Phoenix was going to grow. It could be the county seat, the capital of Arizona, et cetera, et cetera. So he built the house in anticipation of where his property was becoming the county seat, and that he would sell that building to the city or the state of Arizona and make some money.
Did you ever know that?
No, that one is beyond me. That guy, I swear, he was right on the cutting edge of low technology.
Now, you had mentioned his homestead was 160 acres. We were just at another historic site in Tempe called the Peterson House that's on Southern Avenue. And that was originally 160 acres. Yeah. Is that how the common size of homesteads, or is it just coincidence that those two ended up with the exact same size parcel?
That is the homestead legislation.
Yeah, Homestead Act. I think it was like 2 years, if you could show, or maybe even 5, that if you could show that you were improving the property, put some buildings on it, got some water coming in, you could get the land for free. Yeah.
All right. So
and why did they ever stop doing that?
There's places you still can. Yeah. There are places you can still do that. Okay, so Swilling plants and starts the agricultural community, and he's actually located his ranch halfway between what is now downtown Phoenix and Mill Avenue Bridge.
Mm-hmm, pretty much.
Right? So who decides to move downtown to downtown?
Well,
who drives that first stake? Where is it, Don? Washington and Central?
Right. That's where Washington and Central sprang. There was no streets there.
Right.
Yeah. But what was there was the imaginary lines of the survey of the entire Salt River Valley based on the Thomas Jefferson's system of dividing land in America. And so we have Baseline Road is named for the baseline of the survey of Middle Arizona, and the meridian is at 114th Avenue. And so
all the survey emanates from that point.
Yes.
Throughout the state of Arizona.
And then they picked that particular spot on that imaginary grid line, and that's where they started the building of the town site of Phoenix.
And Steve sent me the original plat map of the survey. That's really what does that date to? That's got to date to the late 1800s, right?
The original plat of the original town site was 1870.
Yeah.
And they sliced it up into lots and sold them, starting on the eastern half of the town site. And but it was 1870. A guy named William Hancock, who was a lawyer and an entrepreneur himself, he was the one that was commissioned to do the original survey of the town site.
And he gridded it out as basic and north and south, east and west. Mm-hmm. But he decided to throw a curve in 7th Avenue. What is that about?
Yeah. Well, I think I sent you the video. A friend of mine did, but that curve at 7th Avenue, the Melrose curve as is known, it really started off as an engineering error. and then years and years gone by and trying to, modify the error, but it's become part of Phoenix lore now. So I think it's kind of nice, actually.
If I could change one thing, I'd rotate the grid 45 degrees.
Why is that, Rosie?
Oh, I mean, there's times I'm driving west this time of year. At sunset, you
yes.
can't even see the car in front of you.
That's right.
I would rotate everything 45 degrees off the direct. And since coming in from Romy's house at sunrise, man, it's murder. But anyway, we're not going to go there. As dictator, I would leave that alone. I wouldn't rotate it. No.
You're an anti-equinoxer?
Ooh, I just like to see where I'm going. Okay, so now we've moved into settling of Phoenix, and someone decides back and forth, Prescott's going to be the capital. Tucson's going to be the capital. Prescott's going to be the capital. Tucson's going to be the capital. We eventually decide, let's make it centrally located, a little growing town here on the Salt River. Let's put Phoenix as the capital, and we start the Capitol building.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the fact that they used all indigenous material to build that building.
With few exceptions. The state capitol was initiated in about 1898, and it was designed by an architect from Texas named James Riley Gordon. And
that's because you weren't here yet, Don. Just saying. Just saying.
Well, okay. Just barely.
Go to Texas to find an architect.
Yeah, you got to go to Texas to find an architect. And he had done lots of capitals in county courthouses throughout Texas and the Midwest, and they thought they'd get the out-of-town expert to go do that for them.
So, and what year was that?
About 1898.
So 15 years before we're even a state, they start the Capitol building?
Right. And the whole point of having this fancy schmancy it isn't neoclassical, it's Italian revival style. It's more of what you would see in Florence, Italy, than you would see in Rome or even in Washington, D.C. And the whole point of doing a capital that looked like that was to give the territory of Arizona respectability. It was, they needed to get shook off of the dust of the frontier and say, we are right up here, uptown, with everybody else in the country, and that's why we're doing this fancy dome-topped capital, just like Washington, D.C.
The granite was quarried right here in the valley.
That's right. And people are still trying to figure out where the quarry was over on South Mountain. I think there's still what do you know, Steve?
Well, I've got a couple friends that have really dug into that, and what they've found so far, still up for discussion, is the bricks are really from an area around Moon Valley.
I would have guessed the north side of Paesta.
Right.
I mean, when Gosdell did the point there, he basically closed a quarry that had been operating. I've still got stones from that fire on my fireplace.
That's right. Yeah.
So the granite comes from the valley, and then there's a softer stone, tufa, that comes from Kirkland Junction.
Yeah, well, Kirkland Valley, yeah. And when we were doing some history surveying up in that area, we were at the junction on the way through Yarnell to Kirkland Junction, and behind the old gas station and general store, we found all these big blocks of tufa stone. And we're going, what the heck is all this stuff? It's all just laying around. This was the shaping site for the blocks that came out of the quarry for the capital.
That's awesome.
Rosie on the house, every Arizona homeowner's best friend.